As Andrew said, we are going to talk about a different topic. You guys have been learning about some really awesome payment technologies and how to leverage them, and kudos to the last group of panelists for how they're impacting the world. I think that is something that was a little bit unexpected from my point of view and very much appreciated. So I love that we're impacting the world in a different way. But in this session, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we're going to talk about another issue, which is not only access but adoption of platforms and how you're going to do that. So we've been talking a lot about that. The only way you're going to get that is if the merchants actually have your technologies. This is particularly true if you're a startup fintech vendor trying to get your technologies distributed out in the marketplace is not only challenging, but it can be very expensive. So we're going to talk about leveraging indirect sales channels today. So you might be wondering why me, a marketing person, is moderating this panel. So I'm going to give you two good reasons. One, I spent 25 years of my career before being a marketer as the editor-in-chief of one of the leading channel publications in the technology industry. Second, I've known Marla Ellerman for 30 years. She's the executive director of the Mobile Payments Conference, and she and I started what is now the largest channel trade show in the technology industry. So it every year brings about 7,000 people to their events. So Marla worked in that industry for a very long time. She spent 10 years in mobile payments, and now she's trying to bring those two worlds together. So this is our opportunity to tell you guys a little bit more about how you can leverage this channel. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to you, and I am ready to let you meet your new B2B sales force, and I'm happy to introduce them. So you guys aren't sitting in the order that I thought you were going to sit in, but that's okay. I will wing it. So we have on the very far end, we have Kevin Kent. He is with ScanSource, which is a distributor of IT technologies, one of the leading ones in the country. Kevin is a channel development manager focusing on payment solutions and retail. Next to him, we have Marcia Dempster. She is a cloud platform executive lead at CDW. CDW is a value-added reseller and a direct market reseller, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those terms mean. One of the things I wanted you to pay attention to, though, is she works for the Integrated Technology Solutions Group. Integration is a huge issue for you guys, so put a pin in that word. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Next to Marcia, we have Jeff Ponce, who is the COO and founder of DataTel Solutions. DataTel is also a distributor, but a little bit of a different kind of a distributor that we call a master agency. They focus mainly in the services industry, so connectivity, cloud solutions, that kind of thing. Jeff also has another company where he is a systems integrator. Again, put a pin in the word, integration. So next to him, we have Bruce Renard, and I made this joke in our workshop earlier, but his middle name is Wayne, Bruce Wayne. So a little superhero going on right here. And he has a truly interesting trajectory in his career. I met Bruce also 30 years ago when he was the owner of the largest payphone company in the country. And you can imagine with mobile technology that opportunity faded away, and Bruce had to reinvent himself. He is an attorney, so he always had that part of the career to fall back on, but he started the National ATM Council, and he's been their executive director for 10 years, is that right? 9, okay. And the interesting thing about Bruce, I think, is that now he's faced with another really pivot point in the ATM industry, as you guys have been talking about. Are we going to move to a cashless society? So he's really been involved in evolution, as have all of these experts here on our panel. Their businesses have constantly had to evolve in the face of emerging technologies, and they are constantly trying to help their customers to deploy new technologies that are going to make their businesses grow. Now you can leverage these people and their companies and their peers to do the same for the kinds of fintech technologies that you guys are offering. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and jump into some questions. My first question is for you guys. Can you tell me, is anyone in this audience a partner like our people on the panel? No partners. Is anyone oh, we do have one. Excellent. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Do we have any vendors? Fintech vendors? A couple of vendors. Excellent. Thank you. And the rest of you are more in the merchant category? Is that right? Banking? We just have a lot of people that just wanted to learn about fintech today. I don't know. Alrighty. Well, thank you for being here. Hopefully, you'll be able to leverage some of these partnerships. We're going to start by talking about the value of the distribution channel, and I'm going to start with Jeff. Can you tell me what would you say is like the main benefit of using channels?
Well, here's one thing. The big research houses, IDC, Forrester, CompTIA, they might differ on a lot of subjects, but one thing I can tell you, they all say without a doubt that 80% plus of all technology sales goes through the channel. So if you think you can scale without the channel, you'd be mistaken.
Okay, excellent. So how about you, Marcia?
I mean, I completely agree with that. If you're not willing to maneuver within the channel, you're probably missing out on a great opportunity.
Okay. How about the word integration? Maybe you could talk to that one, because I promised them we were going to talk about
Yes,
that.
I can. So, I mean, at CDW, we have the advantage of being able to leverage so many different partnerships via the channel and even directly within CDW. What the channel allows us to do is work with emerging technologies and up-and-coming partners that probably aren't huge yet, but are going to be. Like if you look at any kind of unified communications solution, a lot of those companies are small to start and then explode within the channel. So what we're able to do on my team in particular is bundle multi-vendor solutions. So we can do a disaster recovery as a service. We can make sure that it's different compliances are hit, and then do a security play on the other side. And it's really helpful to have access to this many large partners and smaller partners within the channel that allows us to package these multi-vendor solutions across the board.
Right. So the key there is that most likely whatever you're offering is an end-to-end. Companies like these can bring in the other pieces that will fill in the gaps to make a total solution, and not only that, wrap it around and solve a business problem for whoever their client is. So let's move on to Kevin. What do you think is an advantage that we haven't mentioned so far?
Well, I think one of the key things that the channel provides is that they spend, their full-time job is to build relationships. And so they're building relationships with those end users, and they're getting to know what is that end user trying to create. In the case of retail, what sort of experience are they trying to create? And, there's a lot of work you can do as a vendor or as a provider to, normalize things and remove friction. But at the end of the day, the buyer, people always buy from people. That's generally how things work. So that's the real value of the channel. And it's really hard to hire enough salespeople. You have to have a really profitable product to hire salespeople that can go and have one-to-one conversations.
All right.
Yeah, the channel has proven very productive in the telecommunications industry. I actually ran a FPTA Technologies, which was an agent business, and we learned how useful it is not to have to create your own in-house sales force, as was just mentioned, but to take advantage of folks who are already out there touching the premise owners regularly and who have relationships with them. And we saw that back in the days when there were payphones at retail, and we see it now very much with ATMs at retail. And I think the ATM industry, because of the pressures that are coming about with the introduction of digital and other factors, those folks are looking to branch out and to do other things. So you've got, in our case, thousands of entrepreneurs in trucks with technical capabilities, technician capabilities that can do a lot of different things for many businesses that might need that to complement their otherwise digital existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so certainly a lot of the things that you guys are doing are, trying to bring people into this virtual world, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to have some endpoints, you've got to have some infrastructure at the merchant locations to enable all these awesome technologies that you are bringing to the market. So we've been talking about the channel, but it's not a homogeneous word. There are very many types of channel partners. So our panelists represent many different types themselves, some of them multiple types because they've been evolving their businesses or they have multiple businesses. So I'm going to let them explain to you about some of the different types that you might meet in the market that might be types that you could ally with depending on your own business models. So we'll go ahead and start with Jeff and talk a little bit about the agency side of the business.
Yeah, so I mean, there's different levels of the agency side. I mean, I think probably a lot of people in this room, especially from the POS side, have worked with telecom agents as referral partners, right? So not their core competency. Telecom agents sell bandwidth and voice services, and they didn't sell POS. That wasn't, and they didn't even know how to have that conversation. So there would be a relationship built between the agent and the POS vendor, and the POS vendor would pay a one-time fee, one-time commission for the introduction. On the telecom side, if you're a telecom agent, that is your wheelhouse. And so you have that business expertise to be able to have that conversation, but you didn't have the back office in order to support a customer from a service standpoint. In other words, you didn't have the personnel to take service calls. You didn't have the ability to take on bad debt if a customer didn't pay, so you weren't billing. So agency help that partner to make that money, especially make that recurring revenue without taking the business risk of the bad debt, of the service, or take those responsibilities.
So one of the things that's particular about an agency model is it tends to be commission-based. They don't bill. And that's a different sort of a model than some of the other VAR integrator models that we're going to talk about in a minute. So with that, why don't you, Marcia, explain a little bit about what a VAR is, systems integrator, because CDW is one of those.
Yeah, definitely. So a VAR is, I'm sure everybody knows, a value-added reseller. So my team at CDW, we leverage a master agent like Jeff. And what happens is that allows us to get commissioned on those deals that we're pushing through. But what really is significant about being a VAR and being as large as CDW is that we really can overlay from start to finish whatever the customer is seeking. So we find out what the business need is. We leverage that relationship that we've probably built over years and years. A good example in the retail space, we just did a huge deployment with Carhartt nationally, all of their stores, all the way from their POS solution to circuits. So the telecom side of things, we leveraged our brokerage practice, spun up new circuits for them. They have new point of sales equipment. They have a new phone system. But what goes on top of that is the managed services that come with it, which, that's additional billings every month that goes through our master agent as well. But it allows us to build upon that even more around big data analytics. So another one would be Foot Locker. We worked pretty closely with them in order to provide a managed service that allows them to, if you walk into Foot Locker, a coupon can push through on your phone if you have their app. So they can, of course, when you agree to be on somebody's Wi-Fi, they're tapping into what you look at and like, oh, you've been looking at this pair of shoes. Let me send you a coupon and maybe you're going to buy them. So if you build in the managed services of big data analytics and expand it to financial services and retail services, healthcare, et cetera, the opportunities are endless.
So if you're thinking about working with a bar, they tend to be the ones that are billing, and they are going to be more margin based. However, they do have alliances with some of the other organizations that are more commissioned based in order to get some of the things they're doing. Their billing might be margin based for hardware, like a point in time thing, or it might be, like she said, managed services, which would be recurring. So either way, you're doing mostly all the billing except for your communications.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on and ask Kevin to talk a little bit about ISOs, which these guys probably are very familiar with.
Yeah. So that's the ISOs are an interesting, and ISOs usually independent sales offices. They're usually focused around payment processing. And what's interesting about them is they're building relationships quickly and at a high volume with SMB merchants primarily, and really more S than M. So 1 to 3 locations is kind of where they top out in a lot of cases. As they get more mature, they try to go up market a little bit more. But what's great about them is that they're sales minded. So a lot of activity. They have a broad reach. And they do build relationships with those small business, the mom and pops. There's 5 million of them across the U.S. There's a lot of them out there. So if you have a product or service aimed at that, they're a good channel to look at. And they're not going to go super deep. So you're going to have to probably package things a lot more, and maybe do co-selling. We've experimented a lot with that, and we've got some good success going. So we've got some strategies around that, but they are great to leverage in terms of they'll have a lot of conversations, and you can learn quickly if it's go no go.
Excellent. And then Bruce, we know that you're working with the ATM vendors. Can you talk about that channel and what they're doing now?
Sure. Yeah, the ATM vendors, it's a very non-homogeneous channel. Everything from the smallest mom and pops out there to the largest company operating over 100,000 ATMs itself, and everything in between. But essentially, you've got some very technically minded folks, well trained, mostly certified to do what they do. And of course, every ATM has a data line attached to it, so there's this whole telecom component. Then the machine itself is a computer, and so there's a lot of computer aspect to it. And so I think there's an opportunity out there to leverage the space. We're seeing some organizations come about that are grouping folks together and making the channel basically, and providing points that you can contact now and get national coverage, including in remote places, for things like installation, deinstallation, repair, maintenance, all the things that tend to go along with terminals generally. We're also seeing a movement among the ATM companies beginning to leverage their relationships themselves to bring in things like smart safe programs into a lot of the locations. Smart safes are very big in other parts of the world. They're coming to the U.S. now big time. Some of our most successful members in the association provide a whole host of services to their locations. Literally everything from putting in the lighting in the location to just literally everything. And it's the old maxim in this area, which is the more products and services you can provide to your location and your customer, the stickier your relationship will be. And so it's really an idea of layering on, finding out what the location needs from those that have that close daily, weekly, personal relationship, and then bringing the resources together to meet those needs.
Excellent. So we have one more category of distributor, and we have two of them here. So I'm going to let them each describe their models because they're different. So Jeff, can you explain your model?
Yeah, so I come from the master agent side of the fence. So we were a services company, right? So our partners were mostly MSPs and VARs, and and they had a different DNA than us, right? So they supported the network and the desktop levels for end customers, and we were had telecom expertise. So we had engineers that would support our partners, and then we share the revenue. So it was a recurring revenue model. We'd have a contract with that partner, and it's always worked very well together. But the distribution model is changing really quickly. I think if you look at, I know Forrester and CompTIA have both done research projects and stated that probably 50 to 70% of all IT products are now being bought by line of business uh, executives. And so, and especially from the marketing, the CMO is actually making purchases where in the past, when I started this business, the CIO was making all final decisions. So now you have the CMO purchasing digital marketing platforms. You've got the head of HR purchasing workforce and other applications like that, and it goes across the whole spectrum. And then the CIO now is trying to run to services that have already been purchased. So the model has changed completely, and which also has brought advent to what we used to call the shadow channel, which was folks that were selling into the channel that didn't really kind of belong in this space before. And now that now you have CPAs that are in the channel. They're selling channel products. We have CPAs that are partners of ours. We talked about the digital marketing space. That's become huge, and we can go on and on. But the one piece that's constant, and Kelly brought it up, so I'll say it one more time, is integration. Matter of fact, I think everybody should go back to their office and create a drinking game called every time someone says integration, you got to take a drink, because you're going to hear it again and again, because all these different disparate applications need to be bolted together by somebody.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So these adjacent channels that he's talking about could be excellent ones for you guys, because if you think about a CPA, they're influencing financial decisions for many of the companies that are your merchants, especially as we're getting into security and privacy and things like that. It's having an expert on your side to implement that as a merchant is useful. And then if your products are part of that, it kind of flows along with the sale. Same thing with these digital marketing agency. They are the ones that are implementing those e-commerce systems that could incorporate your payment technologies. So excellent channels to be looking at. So Kevin, explain what ScanSource does and how it's different from maybe what Jeff was doing.
Yeah, so ScanSource is a very large distributor, and principally in the past, that's mostly been hardware. So we have big warehouses with big shelves, and there's lots of hardware there, and a wide set of SKUs, and that still continues today. But I think more and more, there's specific types of configuration or software. And after you do Jeff's drinking game with integration, the word that's harder to say is interoperability, but that's the one we're starting to use a lot. Where it's not enough to just provide point solutions now. The end customers are really looking for things to talk to each other, and it could be a custom integration, or it could be that 2 providers or 3 providers have done pre-integration work already as more things move to the cloud. But there's a curation that needs to happen, and so we're seeing from a distribution standpoint more and more. Hey, it's kind of like, do you want fries with that, right? So it's hey, you're going to buy, to Marcia's point, you're going to buy a new point of sale system. You should also upgrade your phone system, and those 2 things are cloud connected, right? And that creates other user experiences, so that we all hate having to call up someplace in customer service and give our phone number 3 times or our address 3 times. I mean, it's maddening, especially for us probably that are in the IT space. Like, hey, this is just data. Like I already told you this. You probably already have it. You're already looking at a screen that says it. So, so we see ourselves as having the SKUs, having hardware, software, knowing what sort of packages might be out there for support, and then bringing those to the channel and enabling them to sell that more and more.
So I love what Kevin was saying, and it's been echoed almost in every single panel that you've been in at this conference is your customer experience is the number one thing. And in order to create a frictionless experience, you're going to need that integration and that interoperability of many technologies. And it isn't just at the point of payment, it's beyond and throughout the store, if it's a store environment, or throughout the business or on your website. So these kind of people are seeing the whole picture and how your piece of technology will fit into that. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to wrap up with is the opportunity really for vendors that are here in this room or merchants that are here in this room to work with partners to, get the newer technologies out to create that better experience. So let's go ahead and start with Bruce.
Well, I guess first thing I would say is consider coming to our conference. That's NAC's holding a conference in October at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, and we'll have all of the ATM entrepreneurs from around the country there, the vendors, the providers, and that's a great place, I think, to make a lot of connections that will prove useful in almost any other business in the channel that you're in. And shows like this, I think making these networking connections here and at other conferences these days is more important than ever as we see this convergence of many different fields that had nothing to do with each other 10 years ago and now are integral to one another.
Excellent. So one of the other things that he had also mentioned was leveraging these ATM vendors for field force. That's not their primary role, but that's something that they have and that you can leverage, because having a field force throughout the country is extremely expensive. So this is a great way to do it. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, I think everybody needs to really be thinking deep on business development. I think sometimes we stay in our lanes and we shake hands with people, but we're not spending enough time trying to figure out how we can work together. And by the way, it's not just this industry. I think every single show that I've been to is people stay in their lanes, and I think we need to get out of that. So we talked, I brought up, digital marketing. The CMO is probably the behind maybe the CEO and CFO, probably the third most powerful person in big corporations now, because they're the ones driving that, that revenue. So if you got that digital marketing platform, are they, they're not e-commerce people, so why aren't the digital marketing people integrating with the e-commerce people? Why aren't the e-commerce people integrating and talking more to the financial people and the compliance people and the payment people? Why you guys should be all bundling together and having go-to-market strategies?
Interesting, yeah. So creating your ecosystem, that's
Yeah.
a word that you like to use, right, Jeff? So
Yes.
creating your ecosystem, and these people can definitely help you bring some of those pieces together for sure. Marcia, how about you? Any things that you think that you would encourage the fintech space to leverage the channel for?
Definitely. And Callie touched on it earlier, but one of the biggest conferences that we go to twice a year is Channel Partners. It's coming up in, oh my God, less than 2 weeks. I'm not ready. But it's a huge show, and it's a lot of very established cloud and telecom providers. CenturyLink's there, Windstream's there. But then there's also these up-and-coming emerging technologies that a year or two from now are going to be bigger names. But what happens here at this conference is it allows my team, which includes very tenured sales folks, business enablement specialists, so that, biz dev category, and then project managers, post-sales support, all of that stuff. We go and evaluate all of these partners. So what happens is my team, or me, or one of the other folks on my team, become a trusted advisor, and that's a term that we use a lot. We're completely vendor agnostic. I can go and have, 6 different meetings in a day, and then be able to tell you or tell your customer, or whatever the case may be, okay, here's what I would recommend for this, and here's how you could bundle it together. So if you're doing new connectivity, two or three circuits, where are you putting your data? How are you keeping it secure? are you prepared for a disaster? Do you need someone to manage it for you? So it's again, all of the integration. Everyone take a shot. It's 10:15 in the morning. It's fine.
Yeah, we start early around here.
We do.
Anyway, yes. So excellent point. You get instant credibility with the merchants that you're dealing with if you use somebody who they already trust, right? This is very important, especially if you are trying to sell new technologies or you're a new logo. Okay? So, Kevin, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo, it's kind of what we talked about before. You can say the channel, but the channel actually breaks down into some very different types of groups, and those have different needs. And so as you're designing your program, your go-to-market strategies, kind of focus on the ones that you want and realize that they're going to have different dynamics. Sales agents, they want things that you can probably quickly sell and add on to existing merchants or existing opportunities. VARs like to go much deeper into the technology and become sort of the expert and kind of weave that in, do a lot of integration, take another shot. Yes. So, there's different types of sellers out there, and understanding that those might be good fits for new things you're trying, or if you're trying to get into a new vertical, something like that. Investigate the channels and understand the buying dynamics that are behind those channels.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of resources. Bruce is having a show coming up with his channel. When is it? October, you said?
October 15th through 17th.
Yeah, Channel Partners is the 9th through the 12th. That's in DC. That's a resource. We did have CompTIA here for our channel workshop on Monday. They are in the hall. They have excellent resources for anybody exploring building a channel program, including extensive training. They have a show, unfortunately it was 2 weeks ago, but they do have a show that you can go to, but their resources are very extensive. Jeff sits on a couple of their councils, so he also has a lot of information about them. I also have another CompTIA advisory council member has given me a Performa spreadsheet that can show you the advantages of using the channel. If you would like to get a copy of that spreadsheet, she's allowed me to share it with you. Just give me your card if you see me around today, and I'm happy to email that to you. Anything else from you guys before we end? Any other resources they should look at?
Well, I would just say just to show you the diversity within any one channel, our folks right now, in addition to looking at the SmartSafe programs, are very active in rolling out video advertising on premises, both in terms of ATM toppers or on the ATM as well as standalone. We have a program now that's come out that's a virtual gift card program. So for a store owner that wants to get rid of that thing with all the cards on it, they can accomplish virtual gift cards through the ATM. So even within the channels, I think you'll find a lot of diversity out there and opportunity.
Incredible amount. So, do some homework and, investigate the best practices. If you need help building your channel, please get advice, because you can't just say, I want you to sell for me, and they will sell for you. It doesn't really work that way. You've got to have a good offer, and you've got to have infrastructure and things like that. So, please take advantage of some of the resources, these experts, as well as some of the other things that we pointed out. Visit CompTIA next door, and good luck, and we hope to see your products everywhere. So thank you.